Hello, my name is Michael Salmony, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode where we talk to interesting people about financial services and digital payments. And I'm really thrilled to welcome Shih-Wen from Caulis in Japan, because the conversations I've had with them have been very enlightening how to do authentication and fraud defense differently to the way we usually do it in Europe. So welcome, Shih-Wen. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Yeah, this is Shih-Wen. I'm originally from Taiwan and have been working in Caulis for 7 years. And yeah, it's my pleasure to join this episode.
Thank you very much. The thing that intrigued me very much was your very dynamic approach to risk management. In Europe, we have a regulator who wrote hundreds of pages of how the industry is to do two-factor authentication. It is incredibly rigid and prescribed. You have a different approach, I think. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, actually, we started solving this problem in Japan from 2015 and 16. And at that time, we have encountered a lot of account takeovers in Japan, and we see the numbers growing rapidly. And we started to solve this problem by doing risk-based authentication. Um, so risk-based authentication, simply explained, is user might log into a line bank from one device, one location, but if this account is logging from another device, from another location, another language, we will calculate the risk for our client, the banks, and then tell them, oh, this is maybe high risk, or this may be a usual user logging in, and then in order for them to send another uh, authentication method to the user to further check the user is authentic user, or it's maybe the account has been hacked. So we started from this, and then we gradually use more data around it to make it more robust. Yes.
Can you give a few examples of that? Because we have some of that in Europe. I mean, also Visa and MasterCard, they will check which hand you're holding your phone with and whether you're typing at the usual speed and lots of biometrics. But in the end, it's always a two-factor authentication, more or less. Whereas I understand from you, you're using more data, and also it isn't always rigidly two factors. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yes. So we don't do the second factor authentication for our clients. We simply tell them that what we see of this current session, the current logging, is how much risk we think that is, and we do it uh, from the device and also the connections and also the user's behaviors. We use all of these to calculate. But what we see recently, in recent years in Japan, is a lot of phishing site has been established, and for this phishing site, um, some of the SMS-based second factor authentication is also being compromised, because these kind of phishing sites, they ask the user to input their account password, and then the user, because the user trusts the phishing site, and after they input their account password, and this kind of phishing system, they connect to the real system, and the real system will ask the user to send the second factor authentication, by SMS, and the user also input their the version one password to the phishing site, and so the phishing site gets the control of the user's account.
But if
So
I can just quickly interrupt you there, because we in Europe have actually gone off passwords and SMS authentication. And I think that's also what you do in Japan now, right? This was just the original problem, right?
yes, this happens from 2018 and 19, and recent years. I think it's slowlier in Japan, actually. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. But you, another dimension which was very intriguing is that you network the banks together. It's not just each bank trying to do its own fraud management. Sort of, you call it AML in the cloud, I think. Can you explain a bit how that works?
Correct. Yes. Thank you. So we are actually the first one and the only one that doing the ML and risk-based authentication from the cloud. And the advantage of doing this is we could check the access going to different banks, all from our service. And the contract we have with different banks, different financial institutions, is different from other company service providers in Japan. We could actually utilize this data. We own this data, and so that when instance happen in one of our clients, we could utilize those criminal access data or internet data, utilize those data to protect other clients' systems. So that's we called it a network effect
Yes.
for the protection. Yeah.
Now, that sounds like a really good idea because, I mean, if one bank discovers that there's this phishing attack or there's this fraudulent merchant or there's this new attack, that it then doesn't keep that information to itself, but shares it with other banks so that we all get safer together, despite all competitive advantages. And that's, I think, what you're doing, right?
Yes, correct. Yes, and we just joined a FETOF event in Vienna. And within the session, they talk a lot about private sector and public sector partnership, and talk about the private sector partnership, which is we really need to share the data with each other because we can only be as smart as the data we can see. And while these banks or security companies, they might be a competition for their users, but in front of the cybersecurity or money laundering, they really need to hold their hands together and exchange information and data so that they can protect each other. Because the criminals will always find the weakest link in the cybersecurity or in the money laundering things. So yeah, so by sharing what each of our customer learned, we also have a user seminar for all the representatives to of the our who are our clients and using our tools to join. And within this seminar, some of the clients they will share how they use our tools, how they use our software to protect their system and protect their users. So I think this is a very good practice. So we're not just a software company; we're also helping to share these best practices among our clients to create this better community.
That's very impressive. I mean, I'm hearing two things. One is you're sharing this fraud data between the banks, which is obviously a good way of doing it because the fraudsters surely share their experience to try and see who can work out how to attack the banking system best. So they're sharing intensely. And we need to do that too, because some in Europe still think that confirmation of payee might be the answer to fraud. And I think you're 5 steps ahead. And the other thing you're doing is customer education, right? Which is also very important, that consumers and maybe also some banks understand better what the current threats are and how to defend against that. Those seem to be very smart measures. Yeah. But maybe I can ask you on the last thing that struck me when we spoke before. You're not only using more data than people typically use, you're sharing with the banks, you're doing market education, but you even go beyond the financial sector, as I understood it. You actually use data and talk to telcos and real estate companies. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So one thing we do very differently is we try to get data from different industry. So recently we just get approved is the we get data from electricity companies, and we actually need to get approval from the Japanese government, like the police agency and the FSA, and so. this idea is because Japan is an aging country, and there are a lot of houses in Japan. It's becoming vacant house. So this actually creates some social problems in Japan. And for example, a person might use a stolen credit card and purchase a MacBook and send to a vacant house and get it from there. Or a criminal group might utilize all those addresses to register a bank account. So from account creation points of view, or from ongoing due diligence point of view, the banks, they would like to know if the user's address is still valid, and usually they would have a very high cost to just know that information. So what we do is we work with the electricity companies, and the electricity company, they already have these kind of data. This user live in this place, and is he paying the electricity bill or not, and is there any electricity actually going to the address or not? So we're partnership with these electricity companies to utilize those data within our system for money laundering purposes.
That's very impressive. Unfortunately, our time has come to an end because there'll be lots more angles to explore on that. Like, for example, GDPR, which I think people would feel a bit sensitive about Europe, sort of all this data being shared across multiple companies. But it seems absolutely necessary to do that in a safe and user consented way, of course. I'm aware of other companies sort of looking at some little building somewhere in the depths of the Netherlands suddenly have 500 merchants in their one floor bungalow. So using real estate data or maybe electricity data to see if somebody actually really lives there and turns the light on and there's not just a postal address. Those sound very different and very innovative ways of fighting fraud. So thank you very much, Shih-Wen. You've been most enlightening to hear from the other side of the world what clever things you're doing over there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, everybody who's watching this channel. I hope you found that equally interesting, and I hope we will join us on other episodes here. Thank you for watching.